CEF gave more than $5 million in grants to various climate activist entities last year. They trained over 45,000 activists. And
Can't we
more
just
being
have a normal summer where like shit isn't burning? And
absolutely not.
oh my God, this is stressing me out. Okay, sorry, go on. I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjakovic, and we are unapologetically outspoken. Hey everyone, welcome to Weird Wednesday. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the weird fucking world of climate change activism and the possible upcoming summer protests. So, Stephanie, you know how we just keep seeing all of these stories about climate change activists doing ridiculous shit like vandalizing fine art in museums and gluing themselves to sports cars and like blocking roads to protest fossil fuels. Well, the majority of this like extreme and frankly very weird and destructive behavior has been taking place in Europe. There's like a group called Just Stop Oil. They're the ones that, threw tomato soup on the $84 million Van Gogh painting at London's National Gallery last October. And then I guess the same group has recently been blocking traffic in England. And they apparently are an offshoot of another activist group called Extinction Rebellion, which, by the way, is the group that Greta Thunberg started with. And then there's another group called Dernier Renovation in France. And that's the group that threw paint on France's Justice Department building and the Ritz Hotel in Paris a couple months ago because they wanted to denounce the government's inaction on climate change. And then most recently, Stephanie, remember a few weeks ago, we did a podcast where you talked about the tire extinguishers and you were like laughing your ass off at their stupid name. Well, they're back in the news because last week they deflated the tires of more than 100 SUVs in Copenhagen, Denmark. And what's so stupid is many of the SUVs they vandalized were electric vehicles.
Oh my God, you can't make this shit up. And maybe they caught on to the fact that electric vehicles emit more carbons in production than like the gas guzzling vehicles, but that's still crazy.
Then there's a group in Germany called The Last Generation. And I guess a few days ago, they sprayed orange paint all over a private jet on this like luxury German resort island a few days ago. And the list like goes on and on and on.
Okay, the private jet thing, though, like I can get on board with that because I've been saying forever they need to target private jets instead of going after like normal people that are just trying to get to work and need a car, because all of these like climate change alarmist people, they fly around in their private jet dozens of times per year. And then when they're not using them, they rent them out to other people. So the carbon emissions is like way worse than an average person. So go on and spray paint those jets. Like I could get behind that. I could get behind that. Not really, but I mean, at least they're targeting the right people.
Well, okay. And according to I read an article in the Daily Mail, right? And these are just a few of the groups that have been like causing complete chaos in Europe over the past few weeks. And there have been recently holding these like week-long rallies with close to 60,000 protesters in London. They've closed down bridges. They closed down the city center. They caused millions of dollars of losses. These fucking idiots have like superglued themselves to the gates of Buckingham Palace and other landmarks. They planted, I guess it's cool. They planted trees in Parliament Square. Like, I don't really have a problem with trees. They vandalized artwork in major galleries. They derailed the continent's largest private jet fair, trade fair, because they chained themselves to the aircraft at the trade fair to protect against carbon emissions, and they've shut down the runways. And like you just mentioned, the private jets, like I'm guessing that they're not fucking with the private jets that are owned by the leading climate change activists. But we've seen some of the shit happen here in the US recently. Like back in April, there were some activists that smeared paint on the display case of a Degas sculpture at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. And the group that took the credit for this is a group called Declare Emergency. And they're a group of activists that believe fossil fuel use is genocidal and criminal. A Washington, D.C. based activist group called Climate Defiance, and they're the ones that protested outside the White House Correspondents' Dinner last month. And they're not only against fossil fuels, but they, according to their website, their role is to, quote, stand in solidarity with our sister struggles for racial and economic justice. And they recently actually, I think they had posted a job opening because they were trying to hire an organizing director to do what they call planning and executing peaceful, non-disruptive, and non-violent direct actions to resist fossil fuels. And I guess they advertised this job at like $72,000 a year. But you have
Where
had
are they
like
getting all
Senator.
this money from? What the hell?
That's a great question. And Senator Joe Manchin has been the target of an activist group called the Sunrise Movement. And I guess they're the ones that pressured him to support the Inflation Reduction Act last August. I don't remember if you remember this, but a bunch of protesters like showed up at his yacht and they blocked him from leaving a parking garage and like basically harassed him to give in with this Inflation Reduction Act. And then most recently, they crashed an event last week that he was doing in West Virginia because he secured the Mountain Valley Pipeline deal as part of the recent debt ceiling agreement. And so they're against that.
I
And
didn't realize that they blocked him from leaving.
yeah,
Because I was pissed. I was so mad when he said he wasn't gonna vote yes, and then he did. But I
yeah.
didn't know that they were like intimidating him.
Oh, yeah. For weeks, from what
What
I
the
remember,
hell?
weeks. Yeah. And like so far, BLM and Antifa have done more damage in the US than climate activists. But according to the Daily Mail, that's all going to change this summer because Europe's top climate activists are planning a quote, large scale civil disobedience campaign of highway blockages, hunger strikes, and disruption at federal properties in the United States this August. And earlier, you just asked, like, who's behind all this shit, right? Who is behind these planned protests in the United States? Well, it's the Extinction Rebellion and Declare Emergency activists. And last week, they did a video conference with the co founder of both of these groups, whose name is Roger Hallam. And he told the video conference attendees that, quote, what we want to do is create a large scale civil disobedience campaign on the climate catastrophe in the United States. And from what I read, their efforts are going to be focused primarily in Washington, D.C. and New York. And so what's interesting here is when we take a look at where all of the support and the funding is coming from. And it turns out that the majority of it is coming from the good old US of A. So a couple months ago, the Washington Examiner reported that according to tax documents, many of these extremist groups are being funded by an organization called Climate Emergency Fund, which is a Beverly Hills charity linked to Hollywood celebrities and some very influential liberal nonprofit organizers.
I thought you were going to say the Clinton Foundation for a second. And I was like, wait a minute, that's Antifa, right? That they're
Yes, they're
backing.
funding, yeah. But you know what? They're probably funding both.
Oh, God, probably.
And according to the executive director of the conservative watchdog called Americans for Public Trust, her name is Caitlin Sutherland, and she said that Climate Emergency Fund has quickly become the ATM that radical environmentalists turn to fund all their disruptive actions. And so, what do all of these groups I mentioned have in common? Well, they're all funded by Climate Emergency Fund. And so, who are the financial backers and board members of Climate Emergency Fund? Well, it's a group of incredibly wealthy elites and celebrities in the United States. You have Roy Kennedy, who's the daughter of late Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and he was the co-founder of this group. She was the co-founder of this group back in 2019. And I don't know if I said Roy, her name is Rory Kennedy. You have Allison Getty. She's the billionaire philanthropist and heiress to the Getty family fortune. You have Adam McKay, the director of the 2021 film Don't Look Up, which I believe was a climate
Yeah.
related film. Jeremy Strong, I don't know who that is, but I guess he's an actor in the HBO series Succession. Comedian Chelsea Handler, she's a whack job. Thomas Middleditch, who's the star of the show Silicon Valley, and then the daughter of the prior Disney executive Roy Disney, and her name is Abigail Disney.
I'm surprised Leonardo DiCaprio isn't on this list, but okay, like that has me concerned so that's RFK Jr.'s sister then. And
Yes,
like that makes me, I wonder if that makes me leery of him. I really like him and I don't want to dislike him, but what the fuck? Okay, sorry, go on.
But according to their website, the CEF gave more than 5 million in grants to various climate activist entities last year. They trained over 45,000 activists and they generated over 24,000 quote press hits with their activities. And so
45,000
we're
activists? What the?
yes, yeah. And
Can't we
more
just
being
have a
trained.
normal summer where like shit isn't burning? And
Absolutely not.
oh my God, this is stressing me out. Okay, sorry, go on.
But so where is this funding coming from, right? So Allison Getty has apparently donated at least 1 million. There's a charity called Onward. Now, here's where it comes together. There's a charity called Onward Together, which was co-founded by Hillary Clinton.
I knew it. I knew it.
It was founded by her and DNC Chair Howard Dean back in 2017, and they contributed to the CEF last year. You have Democrat mega donor, who I don't even know who this is, but Susie Buell. Do you know who she is?
No.
I don't either, but she donated 150,000. And then a liberal California fund that was chaired by her husband gave 350,000 to this organization back in 2020. And there were also massive donations from other liberal entities like the Silicon Valley Community Foundation and the Sierra Club.
Okay, like I feel like everyone needs to wake up that they're destroying our country and world under the guise of climate change. And I mean, we remember months ago that CNN reporter that was caught undercover stating that after COVID, like when the fear around that dies off, they're going to focus on climate change. And so, like, this is totally a political stunt behind everything. It's all just a ploy to get the power over the people. And this includes destroying the food supply, might I add. So, Tara, remember when we were discussing the Dutch farmers that had their land stolen by the government, all due to climate change?
Yep.
Well, the European emissions goals are apparently the reason for the Irish government now to spend 600 million euros to kill 200,000 cows over the next 3 years. And they say that they're aiming at a 25% reduction in agricultural emissions by 2030. And according to Ireland's Environmental Protection Agency, 38% of the country's greenhouse gas emissions in 2021 came from the agriculture sector. And they say it's mostly from nitrous oxide from the use of nitrogen fertilizer and manure management and methane in livestock. Back to the Dutch farmers. They are the biggest exporter of agriculture next to the US. And now we have 200,000 cows that are going to be slaughtered and these are dairy cows that are providing dairy to Europe. And then in the US, we have China and Bill Gates buying up all of our farmland, and farms that are left are financed by BlackRock and then Vanguard and State Street. So I feel like it's the famous Henry Kissinger quote, who controls the food supply controls the people. And in my opinion, that is what this whole climate agenda is about. It's about controlling the people. It's a power grab by the elites. And they're paying, that's the other thing. They're paying these activists. Like they're hiring, you just said what, 45,000 people. So these are politically motivated people hiring people to go cause chaos so that the rest of the population just submits. And by the time everyone realizes what's really happening, it's too late. Our food supply is gone. They'd rather feed us lab-grown meat and genetically altered food that's causing our disease rate to go through the roof so that they can control the population. Like, I'm sorry, that's my opinion. Call me a crazy conspiracy theorist, but I think they're trying to destroy the food supply.
Well, clearly, but what's even more like concerning to me, I mean, that's actually more concerning, but the fact that like a lot of these climate change activists, like they truly believe in what they're doing. And they believe because now we are teaching children from a very young age, like school kids, the biggest issue in schools, aside from this fucking gender nonsense, is the climate. It's all about the climate. The world is going to die before they're all old enough to grow up. And you've got this whole generation of people that are just so focused on believing that this is the truth, and our government is using them. And so I want to play this clip from Andy Frisella. We all know I love his podcast, and This is from his episode on May 31st. And I just want you guys to listen because, like, this is literally what's happening.
Answer us in the comments, dude. Are you guys not tired of this disruption? Are you not tired of having your peace disrupted? Are you not tired of just like living your own life and being the best you can, only to have it fucked with by these people who are highly misled? Like, real talk.
Who won't even have a conversation.
They won't even listen, bro. It's because once you tie your identity into something, which these people have, these people care about the environment. Oh, well, you don't really care about the environment like I care about the environment. I'm willing to do these things because I care so much about the environment, even though you're so stupid, you don't believe it. Well, if we're stupid and we don't believe it, then go watch Agenda and watch Agenda 2 and explain it back to me. And then also explain this. Why, when the Statue of Liberty was erected, it was the water level the exact same as it is today? Why are all these tyrants that are pushing you and feeding you this global green agenda shit flying in private jets every single place they meet by the hundreds? Why are these people, these same people who are selling you this, why are they not doing the things that you're doing? Why are they not in the streets making a difference, quote unquote? Why are they buying 30, 40, $100 million pieces of property on Hawaii like these people do?
Right.
Okay, why?
Martha's Vineyard.
Explain it to me. If the sea levels are rising and we're all in danger, then why would you spend $50 million of your own money to own a home on Martha's Vineyard or Hawaii or Florida, like Nancy Pelosi? Why would they do that? Okay? Why would they fly around the world in private jets while you've got to buy some green food bullshit cricket stuff?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Enjoy
Especially
that
if the
cricket
world...
butter, peasant. Yeah. Like, bro, you guys are brainwashed into believing something that sounds very virtuous that isn't actually factually true.
It's not real.
It's not real, dude. It's not real. Oh, the environment, you're saying the environment is not real? Yeah, that's exactly what the fuck I'm saying. Yeah. Like, that's exactly what I'm saying. You guys have been fucking fooled, and they have a term for you in communism called useful idiots. And the more you play into this, the more you're actually quickening the downfall of your own family. And
right? Like, legitimately, that's exactly what's happening. Like, these people believe so much in their agenda because they're being misled, and they're doing all of this shit that is doing nothing but harming everybody. And it's crazy.
It's totally crazy.
And I just want to, like, let's talk about one more note of complete idiocy and ridiculousness before we wrap this up. Like, there was a recent study that was published in the scientific journal called Nature Sustainability, and it quantified the amount of money that highly industrialized nations should be liable to pay for emitting more carbon than other countries. And according to a recent article in The Independent, the results of this study indicated that countries in the global north, which includes the United States, upwards, I can't say it without laughing. Upwards of $146 trillion in climate reparations for exceeding their share of the global carbon budget, depriving poorer nations of their rightful allocation of what could be used by them to develop and grow their own economies. And according to this study, the top 5 emitters, which includes the United States, the UK, Germany, Russia, and Japan, those 5 countries alone are responsible for $112 trillion for, quote, overusing the climate budget. And so, Stephanie, I say that perhaps we can send the bill to California and they can tack this climate reparations bill onto their slavery reparations payments.
They'll just find a way to blame it on DeSantis and Trump. Why isn't anyone talking about China or India, like where there's no regulations on this stuff? And I don't know. I don't know that China wouldn't be one of the top 5 emitters. Like, come on, but no one's going to fuck with them, right? Or like, why not Africa? Why not focus on them where like you have men and kids working in these horrendous conditions and people getting trapped in these mines left and right so that people can have their, electric vehicles and iPhones. Like, I don't get it. If you're going to be an activist, at least do your research and get the facts straight. But I'm not going to hold my breath on that. So anyhow, there's never a dull moment, it seems, in the world of climate alarmism, and we'll keep tracking this ridiculousness because, like you said, Tara, I think it's going to be a crazy summer and they're just gearing up for it. So we will keep everyone posted. I hope that you have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you back here for Freedom Friday. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you get our latest episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you could, please rate and review the show. We are going to be reading every single review, and I would love it if you hopped over to Instagram at Unapologetically Outspoken and say hi. We want to see who's out there and start a conversation, plus get all of the topics that you want us to talk about next. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.